I'm about to do something that's never been done in the history of sports cards. I'm gonna send the same card to all 4 major grading companies. This might just prove that grading is a sham after all. Hey everyone, welcome back to another Market Movers video, and boy, oh boy, I have been waiting for this video. I have been dreaming of this video for so long. You guys know, grading, arguably the most polarizing topic in the entire sports and trading card industry, hobby, whatever you want to call it. Everybody has a strong opinion about grading. I don't grade cards. Grading is a sham. I only send a PSA. If you're not, you're whatever. Oh, why would you send a PSA? They're scam artists. Go to SGC. Everybody's got an opinion. Everybody. Every grading video I've ever done and any other content creator has ever done always is littered with comments like that. You can count on it. Go check all of them. I've been wanting to do something for a long time. I've been wanting to put all the grading companies to the test because my attitude toward grading is that it's not a sham. It has a very important place, especially when it comes to authentication of cards, especially older cards, commonly counterfeited cards, other things like that. And the grading is nice. It's nice to get an authentication and a certification of the condition of the card. However, I have long said that I find the premium, the massive premium for different grades to be somewhat ridiculous. I can look at a card and tell whether or not it looks nice. I can tell whether or not the centering is incredibly off-putting or only slightly off-putting or not off-putting at all, even if it's 40-60. I can see whether a corner is dinged, and if it's not with the naked eye, why should I be paying 2, 3, 5, 10 times or more for a specific condition of a card when I could have something more rare or just as rare for a fraction of the price? That's my attitude. And at the end of the day, what it comes down to when we look at PSA compared to BGS, SGC, CGC, TAG, HGA, whatever, ISG, all the different companies that exist, is it comes down to the same exact card suddenly becoming worth many, many, many multiples more depending on the acrylic holder and the label that it's in with a number. It has nothing to do with the card anymore. It becomes worth more than the card itself because raw to PSA 10 in any card, in any era of card, is going to be at least a 3 times multiplier in most cases. So what I've done is I've picked out 2 cards, and I'm going to go through a cycle, an experiment here. I'm going to expedite the grading process to try to get this done fast. But I picked out 2 BGS cards. Why did I pick BGS? I picked BGS because I wanted to see the subgrades on a newer card. This Pele that I chose doesn't actually have the subgrades, but this is also the company that I think is going to take the longest to get the cards back to me. So I started with the cards in a BGS slab, and I'm going to crack these out today. And I'm going to send them to SGC on a 2-day turnaround, pretty quick. And I'm going to get them back, and then we're going to record what grade did they get with SGC. And then I'm going to crack them out. And then I'm going to send them to CGC on an expedited service level. And we're going to see what grade we got. We're going to crack them out. And we're going to send them finally to PSA, probably at the $75 level, try to get them back somewhat quickly ahead of all the backlog and the queue issues that we have right now. And finally, they're going to lay in their final resting place into a PSA slab, and we're going to see what grade they got. So what cards did I choose? First card I chose, I went out to Cards HQ onto the shop floor and I looked. I said, I need some cards with some decent value to them and with a story or some reason to try this experiment. And I landed on probably the 3rd most iconic baseball card of all time, the 1989 Upper Deck Ken Griffey Jr. card that needs, no introduction. And this is a BGS 9.5, and this experiment is perfect. Why is this perfect? Because it is a corners 9.5, surface 9.5, edges 9.5, centering 9. Now we know that PSA just modified their verbiage on their website to say that it needs to be 55, 45 or better. Maybe in some cases they'll allow 40, 60. I can definitely see that this card, left to right, looks to be a little bit off center. My guess is that this card would come back a PSA 9. If I were just doing this and considering crack and crossing BGS 9.5s, this particular copy I don't think I would take the chance to crack this out of this case and send it in to PSA. But that's what we're going to do. We're going to take this card and see how every company treats this, and also think about the price difference in the game that happens when it comes to this card being in a PSA 9 versus a 10 versus that 9.5 from another company. When it goes to SGC, will it get an SGC 9, an SGC 9.5, an SGC 10? and it's all gonna dictate the price of what I could get for this card on the secondary market, in spite of the card being the exact same card inside these different slabs. So this is gonna be really fun. Then I wanted to go down the vintage path, and I wanted something intentionally middle of the road. Because to me, vintage is very much about eye appeal. It's very subjective when it comes to grading. You start seeing a lot of edge wear, different centering issues, fading, staining. So this card of PLA, it's 1962, WS Verlag Van Eyck International Sport, and it is a BVG5. BVG, of course, you can see here, is the vintage grading service of Beckett. So they're the same company. And I don't know how this is gonna do. I could see this come back like an SGC 3, and then come back a PSA 6, or who knows. So we're gonna send these cards off and see exactly who grades the hardest, exactly who grades the easiest. I'm not gonna alter these cards at all. I'm not gonna, alter, obviously wouldn't alter, but I'm not gonna clean them. I'm not gonna do anything. They're coming straight out of these cases and going to each grading company. So I'm gonna crack them out right now. We'll pull them out, and then I'm gonna get them prepped, and we'll send them to SGC. And by the time we get through that process, the next step will be the reveal of the SGC grades, and we'll just keep going. I am so pumped about this. I've wanted to do this for a long time. We're gonna see how this goes. If it's fun, if it goes well, maybe we'll try it again with some ultra modern stuff, who knows? But without further ado, let's get these cracked out of these cases. And before I forget, one thing that triggered a lot of people when I went through my last video, my very in-depth video about how to grade and evaluate cards, was they said, oh, you're the reason why pop counts are artificial and inflated because you're cracking things out of the cases and not submitting the numbers to the grading companies. I will do my due diligence. I'm gonna take these labels, I'm gonna email Beckett, I'm gonna email the companies when I do this and let them know I have cracked these out of the case, and you can remove these from your pop report if you would like to do that. So there's your little integrity check for that. Last other point is that these are actually in like team bags in plastic cases on the outside. And one pro tip that I kind of forgot about it last time, but it's very true. A few of you pointed out in the comments is if you crack these, like snip them while they're in these bags, they won't shatter as much. The pieces won't go all over the place. It just helps with the damage control while you're doing that. So I'm gonna keep them in here. We'll clip the edges off. I've got my tools here that you've seen me use in the past, and I'm gonna pry these out. And then I'll cut them out of the inner sleeve. I'm gonna take them out. We'll just look at them a little bit more closely, and then I'm gonna get them all packaged up and send them off to SGC. So let me crack these out of here. All right, nice thing about the cracking a BGS slab is that they're in this protective inner sleeve. And so the cases are the hardest ones to get open, other than I've heard the new PSA slabs are very difficult. I haven't tried the hacksaw method, honestly. I was gonna do that with these ones, and then I left my hacksaw at home. So I brought my kit and forgot the hacksaw, but like I said, you got these in the protective inner sleeves. So, when you're cracking that piece of the slab off, you don't have the same risk that you're gonna like rip the corner or do something else along those lines. So there's that one. All right, I'm actually gonna do the pry method here with this one. Let's look at the Griffey. So you can see, like left to right, it's definitely not perfect. Let's hope that it's true that the surface and everything else is in really good condition. Gonna cut these out of here and get them shipped off to SGC. All right, so we are back. For you, it's been a few minutes. For me, it's been about a week and a half. I sent those two cards, the two BGS cards, well, BGS and BVG, Beckett cards, off to SGC. I sent them on their 2-day service. And for these two cards, it was $95. That included the return shipping. I also had to pay outbound shipping, but it was 2-day service. So I got these back very fast. A little bit about my experience with the grading process with SGC. I've graded with them before. I would say that their form to fill out the cards is a little bit confusing. It can be a little finicky on the UI, adding cards to your order. One thing I really didn't like was that you can't build multiple orders at multiple service levels at the same time. So I actually added in a few other PC cards that I just thought I'd send off to SGC, got them into the order, and then had to basically delete them and start all over again. The other thing that was really odd is I never got a confirmation email when the grading submission was done. And when I went into my dashboard, which you could see, the images and everything, we're gonna do a blind reveal here. But what was frustrating is there was no tracking There was no like return tracking to let me know how to track my card. So I had to email support, which they responded very fast to, and they sent me the tracking information, but just some feedback to SGC, I would definitely expect to have the tracking information posted to my user profile on the website and confirmations along the way with the status. So that's enough about that. So let's start off with the Griffey, the iconic Griffey Upper Deck rookie card. And this was a BGS 9.5. And this one was actually 3 9.5s with the 9 centering. So let's see what it got. Oh my gosh. Authentic evidence of trimming. Oh no. Oh no. Authentic evidence of trimming. So SGC, when they get a card that they deem to be altered, they slab it every time and they put it in an authentic slab. So PSA will actually sometimes send it back in a little semi-rigid, and it'll say like "do not holder," and they'll tell you why. But this one got evidence of trimming. So this was a BGS 9.5, $800 card. I think is what we paid for it. Man, evidence of trim. So, I mean, that would mean they determined that the card is too small. Like that, I don't know if they say min size requirement at SGC. I don't actually know. I don't see anything that jumps out at me. The other thing is if they just feel like the edge had been tightened up somewhere, you know, with a razor, they must be evaluating that, but that is not great. I mean, it's kind of great for this video, just to see the difference. A BGS 9.5. I obviously did not trim this card, and I definitely did not end up nicking it or cutting it when I took it out of the inner sleeve on the back end. I know that much. It was very easy to just take the top off of that with scissors and slide it out. Let's go to the Pele. This was a Pele. This was a BVG5. So Beckett has BGS on their more modern. BVG is their vintage grading service. And this was a 5. And this got a 2. This got a 2, an SGC 2. So I have long said, I've heard people say so many times, oh, SGC grades so easy. They grade easy on everything. It's always higher grades with SGC. My experience has been the exact opposite. They obviously have the half grade at the 9.5, which a PSA doesn't have. But I've found that I've had cards that I thought were PSA 10s, they get an SGC 9 or vice versa. So this was a 5 and it got a 2. And I picked this card for a reason, for that exact reason, because with vintage, I always wonder how they make some of the determinations. There are so many factors. There's eye appeal. I have a stamp, a Ty Cobb stamp, like vintage stamp that was an SGC2 that I bought in an SGC2 holder. And all of the PSA copies of the same exact stamp with like the perforated edges are all like PSA 8 and higher. And I think it's one of those where SGC is like dinging it because of like the perforated edges, like a Sports Illustrated for kids, whereas PSA just doesn't ding you for that because it's how it's supposed to look. But this card never looked like a 5 to me, ever. I would say this feels much closer to a 2. I think 2's a little harsh, personally, knowing I've seen a lot of 2's. Definitely off center, has folded corners. The back has some, you know, kind of staining issues on it. It's not terribly offensive. You see that on a lot of vintage stuff like this, but okay. From a 9.5 and a 5 down to authentic and a 2. This is what we would call absolutely getting smoked if you were actually doing this just to try to make money or to even just cross them over to SGC slabs for your PC. That would have been a terrible experiment. For this video, it's pretty revealing. It's pretty revealing so far. So what are we gonna do next? Next, I'm going to send these to CGC. So I'm gonna crack these out right now. And then these are gonna go off to CGC on a high service level too. I wanna keep this video going. And so I'm gonna send them to CGC, and then eventually they will go to PSA. And depending what happens with PSA, I may send them back to BGS at the end. We'll see. I'm eager to get this video out and to the world and show them. But if you remember now, there's this little seam in an SGC slab that we found with this little short guy screwdriver. Can be pretty easy just to... Can you believe that? Look at, it just looks so silly next to each other. And I'll get that label and save it, but There's the SGC2, BVG5, off to CGC. I'll see you in a few minutes. All right, so before we get to the CGC grading reveal, I want to let you know about our sponsor today, Courtyard.io. Courtyard has a brand new code for us this week, and that code is MarketMovers15, which can be used on any sports or Pokemon packs from $25 all the way up to $100, and you'll save 15% off any of those packs. This code is available all week, and you can use it even if you've already used other promo codes in the past. The chase card in the $50 Sports Pro pack this week is a Junior Caminero 2024 Topps Chrome Orange Wave Auto PSA 10 with a 10 auto grade. That's a card that last sold in December of 2024 for $1,000, and Caminero's market has been really hot lately. So if you go to Courtyard.io, use code MarketMovers15 to save 15% off any of those aforementioned packs. Now let's get to the CGC grades. All right, I've got the cards back from CGC, and it feels like it's just been a blink to you, but it was actually about 2 to 3 weeks for me. So we're gonna look at these two. We had the 9.5 in the Authentic from BGS and SGC on the Griffey, and let's see, what did this get from CGC? So I'll pull this away. Kind of fun keeping these labels. And this got a CGC 9. I love it. I absolutely love it. So my thesis coming into this was the grading companies are all over the map. Their opinion might not be any better than yours or mine. And so far we've gotten a 9.5. SGC said there was evidence of trimming, and CGC does not agree. They do not agree. They gave it a 9 though. So we're gonna crack that one out here in a minute. I'll put those labels there. And then let's look at the Pele. So this was the BBG5 and the SGC2. And what a gap. Go from a 5 to a 2. Can you imagine any vintage card, price-wise, is gonna be so different between those two grades. I'll pull those away, and it's got a CGC3, very good. So we go from a 5 to a 2 to a 3. So what we're seeing here is SGC looks to be the hardest to grade, and maybe also putting the most, I don't know, investigation into whether or not a card is authentic or trimmed or not. But this is actually what I expected. A lot of people I hear say that they think SGC grades easier. I do not agree with that at all. My experience in sending cards into SGC has always been that they grade on the tougher side of things. And so far, we're seeing that to be true. So now I'm going to crack these out again, and our last destination will be to PSA. I've got these new tools. On this it says they are end cutting pliers. Some people call them tile cutters. The 7-inch variety, Bates choice, the best choice. So only the best for this cracking experiment. But what I'm told is this should make it even easier. I've never used these, so there is a little bit of risk here. But from what I understand, if I just put this on the end here, this should make it very easy. I do not want to hit the card. So I'm going to. It actually came off really cleanly. I love that. So you can see it just literally cut the end off, which should allow me to get my screwdriver in there really cleanly in just a moment. So I kind of coming off the end here. I should probably still be wearing protective eyewear, but I left my glasses back at home. Okay, so that was ridiculous, and I'm gonna be honest, best choice, no. These may be good for PSA slabs, I've heard, but the SGC or CGC, no. These guys were still the best bet. I was just snipping along the edge to clear pieces off, just outside of the card. And now it looks like I can actually just slide this card out without any issues. I'm nervous to do this Griffey now, I'll tell you that. But we're gonna get this one sleeved up. Let's look at this Griffey now. Let's look at the case. So the problem I had last time was this top portion just completely broke off. It wasn't even part of the whole, like the whole piece did not lift up in one piece like most of the other companies' slabs. So I'm gonna go back to this guy. All right. That was nerve-wracking. CGC slabs are not to be trifled with, it appears. On the scale of SGC to CGC, I would say in difficulty to get them out in one piece, but we did it successfully. I do not see any issues looking at the card now. So one thing I know is, PSA in recent years made the security around their slabs much more difficult. A lot of people see how easy it is to get into an SGC slab, and that raises a lot of concern. And so this acrylic to me strikes me as kind of what I've heard PSA's done with their newer slabs, which is make it a lot more difficult to break it in one piece. I've heard it's just a devil to get those new PSA slabs open too. I have yet to crack one of the latest PSA slabs. So this seems like that's why CGC did that, to kind of make it really difficult. And boy, that was difficult. So probably a good security feature. If you're trying to crack and cross, very frustrating, but from a security perspective, probably beneficial. So we've got our 2 cards here. Last stop, PSA. These are going off. We'll see what their expert opinion is. Can't wait to see the results. Hopefully it's something completely different than what we've gotten so far. All right, I am back, and it is the moment of truth. I've been waiting for this moment. I sent these 2 cards off on the $75 regular level just to try to get them back a little bit faster. It is the week before the National right now. So this has taken a few months. This has been a few-month project to get these cards sent off to the different grading companies and back. And I'm gonna start with the Pele. As you know, that was a BVG5. Came back an SGC2 and a CGC3. And one thing I noticed when I was just looking at these labels that kind of made me chuckle. This is kind of an obscure card. Actually, it's a really obscure card. And the original BVG slab just said 1962, WS Verlag, Vanna Eichel, International Sport. SGCs came back 1962-63, WS Verlag, König Fußball, Pele, and then they had some other stuff. And then CGC called it 1961-62. So I'm not sure these companies even know what this card actually is, and I really don't know what it is. I would have just trusted the label. But let's see what the grade is. That's what you're all here for, and let's see what it came back as. And it came back as a PSA 2. So same as the SGC, came back a 2. From a BVG 5 down to a PSA 2. Same exact card. I did not damage this card. The card is exactly the same as it was from the get-go. And I'll tell you, when I originally looked at this card as a BVG 5, it did not look like a 5 to me. But vintage has a lot of subjectivity in it, and a lot of eye appeal subjectivity. And it's really funny when you see a card that's like a PSA 5 in vintage compared to an ultra modern card where you can't see a single thing wrong with the card that gets like a PSA 5. So eye appeal, subjectivity, a lot of things. 5, 2, 3, 2. That's a lot of variability. It's a lot of variability. Let's go to the Griffey, because this is the one that I was most excited about. Big card here. This was an almost true gem. Well, this was a min gem, I guess. This was the BGS 9.5. 9.5 corners, 9.5 surface, 9.5 edges, 9 centering. And so based on the subgrades alone, without having evaluated the card, you would think, well, maybe it has an outside shot at a PSA 10. This is a $750 to $800 card in a BGS 9.5. PSA 10s we talked about significantly higher. And then it came back from SGC authentic, basically worthless. There's so many of these cards that to have an authentic evidence of trimming version of this card basically takes it from an $800 card down to a $20 card, like way down. So it goes to CGC and gets a 9. So now we've got 3 different grades. And I did look at this. I looked at it. I'm gonna show you now. I am shocked. I am actually shocked. This got a PSA 6. This card got a PSA 6. Try to get it into focus. A PSA 6, a BGS 9.5. 3 9.5s and a 9 subgrade on centering. I thought this would come back a PSA 9. I was confident it would come back a PSA 9. And I will say with complete and total certainty that I did not damage this card. I did not damage this card. Those CGC slabs were a devil to get these cards out of. But with the Griffey, I got it out cleanly. And I know I didn't damage it. I was very careful with it. I've looked at it through the slab, just like, do I see any damage? Did it get damaged in the handling process? Is it possible something happened along the way? From a 9.5, $800, to nearly worthless in an SGC slab as authentic evidence of trimming, to a CGC 9, which is like $100 and some. I'm gonna pull this up on Market Movers and record my screen and we'll see the price differences, okay? So $794 is the 90-day average in a BGS 9.5. If I scroll all the way down to CGC to a 9, you see $140. Okay, there's $190 or $140. Not one of these is sold in a while, $133 6-month average. And then if we go to a PSA 6, $60, $51 average. Okay, so now it's time for you to answer the question as I stop the recording on my phone. What do you think of this? What is your reaction to this process? I said in the beginning of the video, in the intro, I believe grading has a very important place in the hobby. It's very polarizing, a lot of strong opinions about it, which I expect to see some of in these comments. At the end of the day, these are human beings, and human beings, not one of us, not one among us right now, is perfect. There's subjectivity, there's mood, there's energy levels, there's emotion. I didn't sleep great last night. If I had to evaluate cards all day today in a dark room every 30 to 60 seconds all day long without having good sleep last night, pretty difficult. So what did they miss? What did they see that made them say that this card was a 6 when every other, when they said it's a 9.5, they didn't think it was big enough. They thought it was a 9. It would suggest to you that they thought it was too small. They saw something that made it defective. They didn't say it was trimmed. They just graded it a 6. It's very strange. And the bottom line is these are the same 2 cards that they've been all along. The same exact 2 cards that they've been all along. And the label now dictates what somebody would be willing to pay me for these cards. And I think in a way it makes sense, and in a way it's really, really, really extreme and dramatized overall on the market. As I've said many times and done many videos, the multipliers and the premiums that people will pay, not for the card, but for the label on the card, I'm definitely in the camp, unlike Jeff's recent video, of buy the card, not the grade, to the extent that you want to buy the highest possible grade that you can afford with the best eye appeal. And this looks like a very clean card. This is probably now one of the best looking PSA 6s on planet Earth because it looks really, really good. So, all right, so now it's time for you to go down to the comments below. And I'm gonna be reading these ones, I promise. I wanna know what you think of this. What do you think of grading? Are you surprised by these results that I got from this experiment? And I gotta tell you, I've got more experiments up my sleeve. I've got stuff already cooking in the works. It's gonna take a few more months. We're gonna keep putting things to the test to help show the truth, just the truth about the nature of some of these things and what it all means. I wanna hear from you down below. And I also want to know, let me know, should I send this card back to PSA? Should I crack it out and send it back and see if it comes back a 6 again? Should I crack this out and send it back to BGS and see if it gets a BGS 9.5? You let me know down in the comments, and whichever one gets the most votes, I'm gonna send this Griffey card back and I'll reveal it whenever it comes back from that grading company and show you what the final grade is. A lot of issues here, obviously. Make sure to let me know down in the comments below all of your thoughts. And as always, until next time, happy investing, keep on collecting, and make sure to have fun.